Hello, I'm Jane Barrett from the Career Farm, and I'm part of a small group of people interested in helping young people and career changers understand what it's really like to do different jobs. The first job we're looking at is coding or software development. If you want to find out more about this project, please sign up for updates at thefutureofwork.org.uk. So thank you very much for joining us on this webinar on careers in coding. I'm really delighted to have 4 panelists who've given up their time this lunchtime to talk to us. So Nell, give us a wave now. Nell is
Hi.
She's a 3D artist, an experienced developer, and knows about coding in VR and games content. She's currently creates characters and assets for VR games at Co-op Innovations, which provides immersive worlds, which sounds very exciting, and the technology that drives them. So thanks for joining us, Nell, today. Tiago, hi Tiago. He is a developer for Pan Intelligence, which is a business intelligence software to help business make better decisions for their data. He builds and features and fixes problems. So thank you for joining us today. Jo is a graduate of North Coders. She graduated in 2017 and has worked as a software developer since August 2017. Currently, she's working for Lad Bible Group, which my son had to tell me who you were. That's very famous company. I didn't know that. Which is redefining entertainment and news for the social generation. That's probably why I hadn't heard of you. So welcome, Jo. We're delighted to have you here. And David, unfortunately, we haven't managed to get David on the webcam, but David graduated in August 2018 from North Coders and is just beginning his first role as a software developer at Human in Sheffield, which is a creative agency specializing in design, digital, and the moving image. So welcome to you all. So let's start by finding out what you love about your job. So let's start with you, Tiago. If you can just quickly give us a couple of points as to why do you love your job as a coder?
Well, programming is what I love to do, so I'm glad I'm working in that area. And basically, it lets me do whatever I want to do, in quotes, whatever. It's the thing about having nothing and building something from the ground up and then seeing it start working and seeing how our customers get happy with what we've done, and when they first experience what we've created, it's the kind of joy that.
Brilliant. Jo, would you like to answer that question?
Sure, yeah. The thing I love most is that every little bit of code that I write is solving a puzzle of some sort. I'm really into solving puzzles. I've always been that way. I mean, the video games I used to play when I was a kid were all puzzle solving kind, so it's something I've always enjoyed. And I think I quite like the combination of creativity and logic that goes with coding. You can be kind of artistic with it, but at the same time, there's also a set of rules that you have to follow. Yeah, I love it. It's great.
Brilliant, thank you. David, do you have anything to add on that? Oh, I can't, I haven't got David on actually for some reason. Okay, Nell, do you have anything to add on that? Nell?
Oh, sorry, I thought you said David.
No, no, he unfortunately we haven't got him on. I'm not quite sure where he is.
Okay. For me, it's like working in games as well, especially like because it's smaller teams, you have a lot of diversity in the work, and it's like I agree with the other panelists. It's like it's very rewarding seeing something come to life and seeing how much people enjoy it. It's just so rewarding. So yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, okay, sorry about this. Just yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so my next question is, what skills or attributes do you need to be a good coder? So, Jo, maybe you could start us off with that.
I think really the only real skill that you need is that you have to want to be a coder. I don't think you need to be particularly good at science or maths or graphics or anything like that. I think you just kind of need to want to knuckle down and concentrate on learning the skill for yourself, because it's there's quite a few different sort of soft skills that go into being a good coder. So things like teamwork and listening skills, things like that. but yeah, you don't have to be particularly good at anything very logical. I think you just have to, you kind of have to want it. I think that's the most important thing.
I would thought you'd have to be good at maths, but do you think you have to be good at...
No. Yeah, I'm terrible at maths, and yeah.
Great. Tiago, what do you have to say on that?
It really depends on what you're doing. If you're doing a lot of graphical calculations, you're building like a physics engine or something, you need to have some knowledge about that. But there's so many libraries out there already that do the things that you would want to do, that even if you're not very good at maths, you'll find that because you have this objective, you will learn whatever you have to learn to get there. And sometimes people don't like something because they didn't have a reason to learn it. So even if you don't like maths or you're not good at maths, you might find out that you actually like it when you have an objective. But really, you don't need anything special to become a coder, other than have a passion for building something. If you like to unravel like a mystery, you'd probably be a good coder.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. Now, what would you like to add?
So yeah, I agree. Like knowing maths and physics is only important. Like you said, like if you're doing like engine work for games, then. But other than that, like yeah, libraries, they provide like all the help, like maths help you need there. But I'd like to add to that also there's this other thing of industry standard programming, that you need to know that before you can join the studio, and that's something that's just not true as well, because every studio has their own standards, has their own way of doing things. So you'll just, most of the time you just learn on the job, and you learn to adjust to like whatever studio you're working for. And I'd say, to add to that, like what's important as a coder is like this, there's still like sometimes this stereotype of the nerd coder who's just very clever but doesn't know how to communicate. It's not something that studios want to hire anymore. They need someone who's a team player and who can communicate, and who what else did I yeah, just discuss work with other people. So being a socialist is a good thing.
Cool. So we're getting some questions through on the question box. So one is, what language is best when looking for a job? Joe, do you want to start us off with that?
Well, having come through North Coders, we get taught exclusively in JavaScript, and the cool thing about JavaScript is that it's the language that can be used on both sort of the back end and the front end. So what I mean by that is the back end is kind of like the bits of the website that you don't see, or the data management, things like that. And then the front end is everything that you see in your browser when you open Chrome or Firefox or whatever. And JavaScript can cover both of those. So it's really, really versatile language. It's very, very popular. Yeah, I'd say that would be a really good starting point for anyone wanting to learn to code.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, Tiago, what do you have to add on that?
Yeah, I just want to say that JavaScript has the addition that every one of you already has a way to try JavaScript. It's just in your browser. You just have to bring up the developer tools, use the F12 key, and then you get like a console thing, and you can start trying in there. So every one of you can already start trying that. But really, it's not so much about the language, but more about knowing how to structure your code, knowing how to read any code. Because if you're a good programmer, you can pick up a language really easily. I lost the count of how many languages I use every day, or how many languages I even know. It's just whatever comes up, you pick it up, and you go on from there. But like Joe was saying, JavaScript is a very good one to pick up. Python is also very nice because it's the syntax is almost like English, so it's very easy to pick up. And I would also say that because of you're all very young, so you're all into games probably. C++ is also very, very appreciated in the games community.
Okay, cool. Now, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, so I agree. Like for games, if you want to work in Unity or Unreal, it's C# and C++. But like I just said, like if you know Python or JavaScript, they're quite similar. So it'll be even knowing just one, it'll be easier just to pick up another one. So.
And what about 3D? So development in virtual reality what are the codes that you use for that? Because that seems to be a growing area. I mean, I just see the applications of that being massive.
So if you want to use, if you want to do programming inside 3D software, it's Python. That's useful. But if it's engine stuff like Unity on Unreal, so and even like I think if you want to work for the companies who build the VR headsets, like C++ is a good one. So.
Do you, now this is a good one. Do you need to go to university to be a coder? Joe, do you want to start with that?
What I did at university, I did music at university, so that has absolutely nothing to do with coding at all. So I learned coding by teaching myself at home when I wasn't doing my music stuff. I just went in and started ripping websites apart and seeing how they worked. I taught myself largely until I got to North Coders, however many years on from that.
Okay, great. And why did you decide to make a career change? Because you were a teacher before, weren't you?
I was a teacher before, yeah.
Did you teach music? No.
I taught primary, so I taught a bit of everything. So music, even a little bit of code. But yeah, I switched over to coding because there's more of a work-life balance with code. I think it's nice that you can leave your job behind in the office at the end of the day when you come back. So that's what I wanted really, and the fact that I get to be creative and do a lot of puzzle solving.
Right. Okay. Great. Very good. Okay. Tiago?
Well, I actually started programming when I was 16, if I remember correctly, and I actually did 3D modeling back then, and I wanted to automate some things, so I learned Python to help me with some models. But then I found out that I enjoyed coding more. But so from a young age, I already knew what I wanted to do. So I actually went to uni to study software engineering. But you don't have to be you don't need a university degree. You just need to learn how to code. You can teach yourself how to code, and then later on the learning comes from on the job learning. That's when you learn the most, and when you learn the most principles. Because I think Nell was saying earlier, each company has their own standards. Each company has their own way of doing things. So even if you learn one particular way, you'll have to relearn it again when you go to another company anyway.
Sure, absolutely. Now, you've got quite an unusual background. The fact your email to me said you were an artist, so I'd like to find out a little bit more about that. And do you need to go? And same question: do you need to go to university?
For artists, I wouldn't say. Like when I went to uni, I learned more from my fellow students than from my teachers, and we have. It depends on the university. Like some of them. Sometimes teachers are good, sometimes you're just really unlucky and they don't even know the workflows that you need to be able to function in a studio as a 3D artist. So like I say that there's so much out there. There's like CG Workshop, there's Polycount, there's YouTube videos, yeah, like there's so many online resources that and books and stuff that I think sometimes they're even more useful than going to university. So
I think it must be quite hard to motivate yourself to do it by yourself, though, just learning through videos and that type of thing. So I think one question we've got on here is what is North Coders? Joe, you're probably best qualified to answer that.
Of course, yeah. North Coders is a coding school based in Manchester. They run a bootcamp course, which can last anywhere between 12 and 16 weeks. They train you up in JavaScript, so they will start you training in 2-week blocks of different aspects of JavaScript. So they'll start you off with like the core of the language, then they'll teach you back-end skills, then front-end skills, and then you'll end up doing a project with a team at the end of the course, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, they're really good. I can't speak highly enough about them because they've got me where I would say.
Check them out. Great. So we've got some other questions coming through. This is great. Keep the questions coming. So are there entry-level jobs for someone without a degree that you can apply for? Anybody, would you like to answer that?
Well, we actually in my company we've hired 2 people already that had no university degree in programming. So actually, we just had one who started. He was actually a 2D animator and an artist, and he found out that he liked programming more, and he went to a similar program that you did, Joe, and he's very good. So we hired him. So all that matters really is how good you are, because that entry level thing, because we do some tests to people. Usually we give like a programming challenge to try to see how they write their code and how they structure their application. That's really the key point where we judge if this person would be good or not based on the university degree, because that really tells us nothing.
Okay, great. And anybody else like to add anything to that?
I'd say for the games industry, going to events is important. Like there's so many out there that are cheap or free, and talking to other people and going to like for example tonight is Gamayo here in Leeds, which is like a massive Yorkshire game makers meetup. So and you'll meet so many people, and if you reach out to people and say, okay, I want to be working in the industry and stuff, that's really like people are happy to give advice on that. Or EGX, Eurogamer conventions. There's one in London, which is Rest, and one in Birmingham, the EGX one, and they always have like career panels and fairs and portfolio reviews. So there's there's opportunities for you out there, like to just go to these people and ask like, okay, can you check on what I've done already, and how can I improve myself, and how can I find a job? And even just putting your name out there and seeing the same people over and over again is quite useful as well. Like because I know like our boss Simon, he's hired people out of university just from meeting them at events. So
sure. Could you just drop me an email with the name of those meetups and the conferences, and then I'll add it to the follow-up email that everyone will get, so that you'll get a list of kind of the links that we talked about today. Okay. Does anyone know how to get into cybersecurity? That seems to be a question that's coming up a few times. Anyone know anything about that?
Well, actually, if you can wait 5 minutes, I could grab my colleague who's like a cybersecurity expert, and he'll come and answer that if you want to. But
that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be fab. Yeah.
In the meantime, I'll just say that.
If you want to go and grab him, brilliant.
Yeah. All right. I'll be right back.
I love this. Brilliant. Excellent. Okay. What are the good? We had a good question here. What are the good university degrees if I'm not sure what area I want to go into? So maybe you want to keep your options open, but would be useful for a career in coding. I mean, actually, Neil, it might be quite good for you to answer this, because you're a designer, aren't you? Because you said you're an artist, so you do more arty stuff. What? Yeah. From that angle, would you maybe?
So the university, the masters I did in the UK was on 3D animation, and that was more focused on VFX, and that was the one in Bournemouth. But I don't think, well, not back then, they were not very game focused. I think Teesside is a good one. Teesside University.
That's a big hub actually for kind of development around that area as well.
Yeah, and the one in Warwick as well. Like I've heard good things about that one too. And there's the Goldsmiths in London is really like they hire industry professionals all the time who are doing teaching as a side job. So they have the industry experience, and they are teaching students about this as well. So.
And what would actually be that course? What would the name of the course be? Roughly.
It's something game related, but I can't remember the exact names for them.
But I think maybe the takeaway from this is to look at your lecturers and look at where else they are are they lecturing and also they've got industry experience and they're working in the industry. I think that's really key. And I know North Coders have people who are actually working full-time or part-time in the industry, and they also lecture. I'd also look at that for universities as well, because it's moving so fast, you need to really keep up with it. Tiago, did you manage to find someone?
Yeah. I got Neil here with me. I'll just give him the headset, and you can repeat the question. There you go. Okay.
Hi, Neil. Thank you very much for answering this question on cybersecurity. The question was, how do I get into cybersecurity?
Okay. I think it's important to do lots of sort of reading into the topic, like blog posts, and follow kind of influential people on Twitter, and you can quite often get good books. Sometimes they have them like Humble Bundle and things like that. There's some really good books around it. I think so obviously you need to kind of get that knowledge that you can then apply wherever you are. So it's not necessarily going to be easy to go straight into a sort of cybersecurity job because you probably need some level of experience. But if you're doing a job in the sort of tech industry, you could apply that those techniques to the job you currently have. For example, if you're a developer, you could apply the cybersecurity techniques to that, and then that might be a way that you could then branch out into doing a dedicated cybersecurity role. Because I think going straight into a cybersecurity role is not going to be an easy thing to do without experience.
And maybe quite narrow to specialize in that when you're very young. I mean, it's a very narrow kind of area, so it might be better to start kind of broad and then specialize into a different area.
Yeah, and you don't always know exactly what you enjoy doing until you start doing it. So, I mean, I'm a developer, but I specialize in cybersecurity because that's kind of what I've determined is my favorite thing to do, really.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate you jumping in and helping on that. Maybe we'll have a dedicated webinar on cybersecurity. I think there's obviously quite a lot of interest in that, and it's a growing area. So fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really good area to be in. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks ever so much. Thank you. So let's carry on this. Just maybe a few more questions before we finish up. So how would you suggest students practice their coding to improve? Joe, would you like to start with that?
There's quite a few different things you can do. I mean, there are several courses that you can take online just to kind of keep your skills going, or like do lots of little bits of practice. There's a really good website that I was shown by North Coders actually called Code Wars, that gives you little puzzles to write in whatever language. So it's not just JavaScript, it could be Python or C++ or anything really. But that's a really good little resource for practicing your coding skills. Yeah, I would recommend that.
Okay, brilliant. Nell, do you have any to recommend?
I would say there's a lot of things on Unity online. It's easy to test things as well. If you like working in games, modding is an option. Because what else? There's some I've forgotten the name. I can ask about it. There's some tools that you can use which make coding quite simple, and it's a node-based. They work with node-based systems, and so you could just like train the logic and like make really simple programs from that, which is useful. But I can look it up and I'll send it to you.
Thank you, and I'll send that out to everyone because you're registered. You'll get that through. Question that we haven't asked yet is, what is most difficult for you? What do you maybe don't like about coding? There are bits that are boring, or bits, so you get a really good viewpoint of what that career looks like. Maybe there's some bits you don't like so much. Who'd like to answer that?
Well, there's. Go on.
Go ahead. Oh,
Tiago, we haven't heard from Tiago. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say that the bit that I don't enjoy the most is, when you have to wait for something to happen, because sometimes the particular problem that you're working on is something that is very complex or very, it requires a lot of steps, and because we're all we're programmers, we all love automation. So if you have to do something manually to get something to happen, that's very frustrating. But also, one of the things that I find is especially when dealing with customers, is sometimes they're not as tech savvy as you would like them to be. So something that is like, oh yeah, you just do this. It's super easy, and they struggle with it. That's the I think the most frustrating bit. It's not something I wouldn't say that I don't like, but it's the bit that is most frustrating, I find.
I'm laughing because that's probably me. Anyone else like to add in? Nell, did you have something you wanted to say on that?
Yeah, so for games program, mostly it's bugs. Because producers, they will always, like, in correspondence with the QA team, like, decide which ones are game breaking and they will need to be fixed for the game release, and which ones can be put on the back burner. But you know, these bugs, it's really difficult sometimes to determine like how long they will take to fix, and even if you fix one, it might well cause like 10 other bugs or more, and it's
Oh, no.
a constant process of just like reiterating and yeah.
I'm quite impatient, so I'm not sure that would suit me very well. Jo, anything you want to...
Pretty much the same as Tiago, just waiting for things to resolve that you need to have happen so that you can get your little bit of work done. That's always the thing that really bothers me about coding. I mean, it'd be nice if we could all just like work in our own little bubble, but most projects are collaborative, so you'll end up waiting on somebody at some point, and I think that's really the only frustration I have with coding. The rest of it's great.
And do you think there's a personality type that's not very suited to coding?
I think if you're the sort of person that doesn't like communicating with people and you don't want to work collaboratively, I don't think that coding would be for you. I think it's very much a team effort.
That's really interesting, because I think maybe the common preconception is that it's somebody coding by themselves in front of the computer and actually not very good at communicating. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, things have definitely sort of moved on from that.
You also need to be persistent, because like I said earlier, sometimes things don't work the first time, and you have to expect that, and you have to expect that you as a person, you are always wrong, and it's tough to accept that at first, but the machine is always right and you are always wrong, and sometimes it's a struggle to understand that, and you need just to be persistent. If something doesn't work the first time, doesn't work at the third, doesn't work at the 10th time, maybe it's the 11th, you just have to get that little bit of extra willpower to get you over that frustration and get you there. But it's something that if you're enjoying what you're doing, it comes naturally.
Thank you. So just to finally finish today, one last question that we've had is, if there's one piece of advice to a student thinking of entering the programming world, what would it be? Nell, would you like to start with that?
Well, for games specific, I would say look into BAFTA. They organize young game designers competition where you can join up with a couple. It's for students from age 10 to 18, and you can join up with a couple of your friends, make a game, send it in, and I think that's like a really good way to like, even if you don't win, like the skills that you learn about making a game is very useful. And if you do win, like the amount of support you get after that, the events that they take you to, because I know the person who organized it, and she's incredibly lovely. Yeah, like going to events, entering these competitions, maybe even doing game jams if universities or schools wish to like if they provide like a games course, doing a game jam, which is a game jam is a small, like a short term, like maybe like a weekend or a few days, where you all just make a game together, and so you come up with an idea, and really that thing of it being short term and having to do problem solving in a short time is quite a good skill to have as well. So and it's just fun as well, like making something.
Well, if it isn't fun, you definitely shouldn't be going into into that career. If you could send me the link to that, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, will do. Yeah.
I'll add that on as well. Tiago, your nugget of wisdom.
Start now. That's what I would say. There's nothing stopping you from starting. Nell and Joe mentioned a few places where you can start learning how to program, and get a GitHub. Start putting stuff on there, and join a coder dojo. Go to a code club. Find one of those communities that will help you develop yourself. But really, all you have to do is just start now.
Brilliant, thank you. And we'll put all these links on the follow-up email, so don't worry about that. Joe?
Just following on from what Tiago said just now, get involved with the community. The coding community is a great place to get involved with. There are meetups going on all the time, and just go along to one and ask questions, and no one's going to think that any questions that you ask are stupid, because we've all been there. We've all been new to this. So just jump in and get involved.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing, just to underline something that Joe said. Nothing is stupid. And I've been programming for so many years, and I still sometimes have to Google how to do ifs in a certain language. So nothing is stupid.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I always think, people who are coders are super, super bright. So that's really lovely that you've admitted that you do have to look things up. And so thank you, all of you. For Nell, Tiago, Joe, thanks so much for taking your lunch break and talking to us. I'm sure the students listening, parents listening, teachers listening have really enjoyed it. It's been a great insight. I've learned loads. There's loads of stuff that I just thought was about coding, and it's completely wrong. So thank you very much for giving your industry insight. And thank you very much on behalf of the schools who are involved today. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Let us know what you thought about the webinar in the comments below. And if you want to find out more about this project, please sign up for updates at thefutureofwork.org.uk.